Good morning. I'm going to share with you my art progress. I made quite a bit of progress yesterday, but first I'm going to show you a couple of comics. I've been doing a little bit of spring cleaning in the middle of summer, and I came across this comic, Groo the Wanderer by Sergio Aragones. I have never read Groo before, but I am familiar with Sergio because Sergio did the little cartoons in Mad Magazine, the little margins around the main stories. And I believe the lettering, or perhaps the calligraphy in here, was done by Stan Sakai, who did Usagi Yojimbo, the Rabbit Samurai. Anyway, this comic, which I found, kind of hidden around among other things, is from 1985. And as fun as the comic is, it's also fun to look at the advertisements at that time. Cloak and Dagger. All right. So we have the comic, and we have sort of this introduction in a scroll here, and this at once tells us, oh yes, this is a Conan parody of sorts, or perhaps we should say a parody of Marvel Conan. So here we have Sergio, calligraphy by Stan Sakai, etc., etc. Now, Conan is a very vast subject to discuss. We have the original stories by Robert E. Howard. I believe I've read them all. And then we have some similar stories that he wrote, Bran MacMorn, Solomon Kane, and a few other characters. Robert Howard was a fascinating character, and it would take many, many hours really to go through his works. But suffice it to say that we have the Conan of the original stories, and then we have the Conan of pastiche stories, which were written after he passed away. Camp comes to mind, and a few others. And then we have the Conan of the Marvel Comics, of which there were a few different flavors. Not all of which I've read. And then we have, of course, the Conan of the films, and I believe there was a television show which I never saw. And then there was a modern version of Conan, which I think started in Dark Horse Comics and now has moved back to Marvel. So it's a vast field. We can only touch on it right now. But anyway, we have the tropes of our wandering barbarian who lives in sort of a pseudo-medieval world. And in this case, Groo gets caught up between two villages, or maybe two city-states, and wackiness ensues. And this is a lot of fun. This is a good all-age story, and I just love the energy of the drawings, and even here's the energy in the paneling here. It's got a fun sense of whimsy to it, and I think I will have to look for more Groo comics. Here is an advertisement for the NFL Super Club for Children. Here are prizes where you sell things, I think, and then you get these prizes. So in the days before the internet, how did you get your back comics? Well, we had advertisements, you had price lists, you would have to write to people, write to bookstores. It was more difficult to find everything. The letter sections were important. They kept people informed. Here's a backlist of issues. And many of these properties still exist today. It's kind of fascinating to see that things have changed, and yet they haven't changed. And then we have a little story about Sergio and how he balanced his life between Mad Magazine and Groo. It's a lot of fun. And then we have Spider-Man saying, "Hey kids, we want to advertise you stuff." Anyway, lots of fun. Also, I was cleaning out. I found this, I suppose this is a preview of a book which was published perhaps last year. Now, this comes from the European brand of Disney Comics, so I'm not familiar with the writers. This was done in 1949, 1950 by the Italian division of Disney, and what they did is they adopted, of course, Dante's Inferno into a Mickey Mouse form. I'm not really sure what the word for it is when one takes a property and then adopts it into sort of a parody or maybe an homage. It's sort of like the game Monopoly, where we have a Star Wars Monopoly and Star Trek Monopoly and Simpsons Monopoly, or perhaps the Simpsons themselves, when the Simpsons would homage a film, or the Twilight Zone, where you have the characters and the world or the setting has been adapted to something else. So in this case, Mickey is Dante, and Goofy is Virgil, and Minnie is Beatrice. And this was just a preview, so we just get a hint of what the story is, and it's a little surreal to see Mickey Mouse with such heavy literature. I remember when I read the Divine Comedy, the Inferno was the best part because it was as close as we got to having a conflict, and it was very creative. Whereas Purgatory and Heaven were static in a way. Anyway, if you look here, they're actually making reference to the engravings by Dürer, and some of Dürer's style has been blended with the Disney comic art style of the day, and the captions are meant to invoke the terza rima poetry that Dante used. Anyway, it's a little goofy in a way to see kind of Disney characters adapted into such a setting. Although I do think it is a little funny that in 1950s elementary school children were expected to know their Plato, a little bit of Nietzsche. There's the abacus there. There's the hypotenuse, or hippopotamus as they call it. Children were given quite a lot to study. There's Homer, of course. I'm the son of no one you'd know, yet the father of all epic poems. And yes, he is. And of course the sophists. Maybe the children weren't expected to get all of this, but I do think there was a very high standard back then. Anyway, on to my art progress. So this is the sketchbook, which I will paint and I will submit to the State Fair as an altered book. And so I've come to the part where a leprechaun has been caught in a trap. And then I had this problem where I had really just one page to show the boy taking the leprechaun gold and buying some art supplies. So to supplement that, I have done some line art in this other sketchbook to sort of fill out the story so that when I scan everything, the story is a little bit clearer. But yet we still have a finished product for the State Fair. So this is based upon a art supply store in a town where I lived. It had a mural on the side, and this was the general look of it. But the rooftop and kind of all these knickknacks in front of the store is based upon a used bookstore. Both that art supply store and that bookstore, sadly, they went out of business. But I'd like to do homages of small businesses that I remember. The inside of this bookstore is also an homage to a couple of bookstores. One was a used bookstore where everything was just kind of scattershot, and the other one was a nicer used bookstore, which actually may still exist somewhere. I'll have to find out. And that used bookstore had a globe and some open windows, which we don't normally associate with that. Anyway, I know this is a different dimension than the other sketchbook, but I mean that's part of the fun, and when it's scanned, it will all work together. So anyway, I only have about 5 more pages left in the sketchbook, and I hope to finish the line art today. And then I am going to work in the other sketchbook for a while, and I want to finish the line art for everything, and then I can start painting everything at once. And that way, it's a very clean process, and I hope a more efficient process. Anyway, I will talk to you about art and comics next time. Goodbye.